Hey guys, so today we are going to continue working on area and perimeter, but today we're going to start talking about how to find the area and perimeter of composite shapes. So to get things started, a composite shape or a composite figure is made up of multiple shapes. To find the area of a composite figure, first we need to divide the shape into simple two-dimensional shapes or simple 2D shapes. Next, we're going to find the area of each individual shape. And then finally, we are going to add those areas together to find the area of the entire composite shape. So before we do anything else, let's take a look at our formulas for areas, because we're going to be using all of these as we work through our composite shapes. So let's All right, so the first one, the area formula for a circle, area equals pi times radius squared, right? And we want to remember that we always want to use 3.14 for pi. Okay. The formula for area of a triangle is going to be base times height divided by 2. So the area is base times height divided by 2. When we're finding area of a square, our area is equal to our side length squared, so s squared, or we can still use the same one as area of a rectangle because a square is a rectangle, and we can do length times width. So then that brings us to our area formula for a rectangle is just length times width, or sometimes we use base times height. But either way, we get the same area. And then we want to remember for perimeter, we just add up all the sides. And for circles, it's not called perimeter, we find our circumference. And remember that to find circumference, we do C equals pi times diameter. So again, we use 3.14 for pi. Okay, so we're going to take a look at a couple examples here, and we're going to show you how you can break a shape into smaller parts or into smaller two-dimensional shapes to find our area. So we have this composite shape here, and we want to find the area of the entire composite shape. But if we look at this shape, we have two different rectangles. So I have this bigger rectangle here, which I can kind of chop this right down the center, or not center, but right here. And we can look at this bigger rectangle and this smaller rectangle. So this whole shape is equal to these two broken down rectangles. So we want to look at area, right? So we want to find the area of our bigger rectangle, and we would do that by length times width, and our length and width are 4 and 6. So we do 6 times 4, and that this section here is our area of our bigger rectangle, which gives us 24. So then we can look at the other part of this, and we have our smaller rectangle that has a length and width of 2 and 3. And so that when we find our area of the smaller rectangle, we have 6. So individually, we have an area of 24, an area of 6. So the area of the full composite shape is 24 plus 6, which is 30 centimeters squared. All right, so it doesn't always have to be rectangles. So let's look at this other example right down here. We have find the area. And this time, if we look at our shapes, we're really looking at a rectangle. So we're going to cut the shape right here, and we have our rectangle and our triangle. So the first thing we're going to do is find the area of the rectangle, and that's listed right here. So for the area of our rectangle, we're doing length times width. So we're doing 15 times 12. When we do 15 times 12, we get 180 centimeters squared. For the triangle, we're going to take a look at our base and our height. Remember, It's going to be base times height divided by 2, or as it listed here, 1/2 times base times height, which is the same thing. So we want to look at the base of our triangle. We don't have any numbers here, but what I know is this is a rectangle and that opposite sides are equal. So since this side here is 12, the base of my triangle is also going to be 12, and the height is 3.6. So we are going to multiply 12 times 3.6 and divide it by 2 to get 21.6. Now we have the area of our rectangle, we have the area of our triangle, and we can add those two together to get our total area of our composite shape. So if we were to add those two, we would get 201.6 centimeters squared. So that's what we're doing for all of these shapes that we're going to be practicing, that we're going to be looking at. We're really just looking at how we can break down the shapes we have into smaller two-dimensional shapes that we can find the area individually and just add them together. So let's take a look at the back, and we're going to do some of these together. Now, I'm going to run out of room. You might want to try to write a little bit small here, because especially for the first two, we're going to find both area and perimeter. So I'm going to kind of use my space and kind of spread this out, but you might want to try to write a little bit small because we are going to find both. All right, so to start things out with this first figure, we want to find the area of the entire shape. So we're going to break this into two rectangles. So what I can do is I'm going to come right here and I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to continue this line here and cut this into two rectangles. So when I do that, sometimes I have to look for what sides I need to find. My smaller rectangle over here is pretty easy to see, because I know if this is 3.8, this is going to be 3.8 down here, and I'm finding length times width. So that's easy enough. I can find my area of my smaller rectangle by doing length times width, which is going to be 3.8 times 3.7. And so when I do this, I'm going to get 14.06 centimeters squared. Okay, that's the area of my smaller rectangle. Now I want to find the area of my larger rectangle here. Now I know what my width is, 3.1. I need to find this length here. Now I don't have that listed, but what I do know is that this full length is going to be this 3.4 here and the rest of this part here, which actually is right across from 3.7. So I have to do 3.4 plus 3.7 to find this length here. And when I do that, I'm going to get 7.1. So I know that this side is 7.1. Now I can find my area of this rectangle here by doing, again, length times width. So I'm going to do 3.1 times 7.1. And when I multiply 3.1 times 7.1, I'm going to get 22.01 centimeters squared. And if I want to put this all together to find the area of my composite shape, I'm going to go ahead and add these two areas together. So to find my total area, I'm going to do 22.01 plus 14.06. And when I add those two together, I have an area of 36.07. And that is centimeters, so it's centimeters squared. So that is going to be my total area. Now, I kind of used a lot of space here. I'm going to erase this so we can find the perimeter. In order to find perimeter, just like we were doing yesterday, all we have to do is to add up all of our sides. So we're just going to add around our shape. I'm going to erase all of this just so I have more to work with and I can see again. But what I did already have is that this side here was 7.1. And I erased this bottom part because I knew that this part over here was 3.8, but if I want to know the full length of this side, I'm actually going to add 3.8 and 3.1 together, which is going to give me a side length of 6.9. So now I have all of my sides labeled and I can add those together for the perimeter. So my perimeter is going to be equal to, add 6.9 plus 3.7 plus 3.8 plus 3.4 plus 3.1 plus 7.1. So I know I'm going way over here into the other section, and that's okay. Basically, though, I want to make sure I add up all of these sides that are labeled, all the parts around the outside. So when I add all of those side lengths together, I'm going to get a total of 28 centimeters. Okay. Now we're going to take a look at this next shape, and I'm going to erase this just so I have some more space. What we're going to do, though, is same thing. We're going to break down our shape into some smaller two-dimensional shapes. So when I look at this shape, I see a rectangle and half of a circle. So I'm just going to bring my line across here, and I have this bottom rectangle, and I have this half circle on top. All right, so I'm going to start to label some of my side lengths and the parts so I know what I'm looking at. I know that this full length across the bottom is 16 centimeters. I also know from here where the circle starts, the half circle, to the end is 6, which means that this other part that I just drew in that's purple is going to be 10 centimeters. Now, that is going to be the diameter of my circle. And if we remember from the front, we need to work with our area formula, which is pi times radius squared. So if my whole diameter is 10, that means from my middle of my circle, from my center out to any point on the circle, that's going to be half of my diameter, which is going to be 5 centimeters. So we're going to use that in just a little bit when we're finding our area. What I'm going to do to start, though, is I am going to take a look at my rectangle. So if I look closely here, I see that I have a length of 16 and a width of 7. So my area of my rectangle is pretty easy. I'm just doing area equals length times width. So I'm doing 16 times 7. When I multiply 16 times 7, I'm going to get 112 centimeters squared. And guys, you're welcome to use your calculators when you're figuring these out. In fact, you're going to need it for the ones that have circles. All right, so the area of my rectangle here, this blue shaded section, is 112 centimeters squared. All right, so now I want to go back to my purple color here, and I am going to find the area of my circle, but really I just want that half circle. So I know that area is pi times radius squared, so I'm going to do 3.14 times 5 squared. Remember, 5 squared means 5 times 5, so I'm going to do 3.14 times 25. When I multiply 3.14 times 25, I am going to get 78.5. And that's the area of my entire circle, but remember, I only have half a circle in my composite shape. So I am going to divide that by 2 to find the area of my half circle, which then is going to be 39.25. Now, to find my total area, I want to add my 2 sections together. And when I do that, I'm going to add 112 and 39.25. This is for my area. And when I add those two numbers together, I'm going to get 151.25 centimeters squared. So my total area for my composite shape is going to be 151 and 25/100 centimeters. Okay, so now I found my area. I want to find my perimeter. So I'm going to come through here and erase my area. And we're going to look at perimeter. Remember, perimeter is the distance around the outside. And when we're talking, we have a semicircle or a half circle here. So we want to make sure that when we are finding our perimeter, we're actually finding the circumference for that half circle. So again, I had my diameter across here, which we had said was 10 centimeters. We're going to need that. So I want to ultimately just add up all my sides. I'm missing this side over here, but it's opposite my 7, and we do have a rectangle, so I know that this side is also 7 centimeters. And I also then need to find this part of my circle here, which is my circumference, but it's only half a circle, so I need half my circumference. So I'm going to start by finding that. So I'm going to do circumference equals pi, which we're using 3.14 times diameter. Okay, so when I do 3.14 times 10, I get 31.4. But remember, it's only half a circle, so I want to divide that by 2. And the circumference of my half circle then is going to be 15.7 centimeters. Since that is 15.7 centimeters, then I can add that to the rest of my composite shape, and I am going to find my perimeter by doing 15.7 plus 6 plus 7 plus 16 plus 7, and that covers all of my sides. I have my 15.7, 6, 7, 16, and 7. And when I add all of those sides together, I get 51.7 centimeters. Okay. Now, on this last shape, we are only going to find the area. So we're not going to go through and find the perimeter, just the area. And if I look, and I can really divide this in a couple different ways. A lot of these shapes, we can find different ways to cut them and break them down. But for this one, I'm just going to draw my line down right here. And I'm going to have this small rectangle, and then I'm going to have this triangle. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with my rectangle, because that's pretty easy, and I already have my side lengths of 3 and 2. So when I find the area of a rectangle, I do length times width. So I'm going to do 2 times 3. And I have 6 feet squared. All right, now I need to find the area of my triangle. Now this whole side here is 10. I need to figure out what just the base of my triangle is. So if this is 2 here, then that means this small section is also 2, and I can subtract that from 10 to find the base of my triangle. So this part here, just the base of my triangle, is going to be 8. And then I want to look at the height of my triangle, and I know from here to here is 5. And then if I keep going, I have another 3. So the height of my triangle is also 8 feet. So I have a base and height, both of 8 feet. So then when I go to do the area of my triangle, I'm going to do base times height divided by 2. So I'm going to do 8 times 8 divided by 2. And when I multiply 8 times 8, I get 64. And 64 divided by 2 will give me 32. So I have 32 square feet for my triangle. So when I want to find my total area, I'm going to take my 6 feet and my 32 feet, and I'm going to add those two together. So my total area is going to be 6 plus 32, which equals 38 square feet. Okay, so that wraps up how we find area for composite shapes, composite figures. For the rest of this, there are some other ones that are some challenge questions. I do want you to try some of these on your own. They are a little tricky. Just kind of think about what they are telling you. So here we've got a circle with a triangle inside of it. And it's telling us to find the area of the shaded region. So think about what we would have to do to find the shaded region. Most of the ones we've done so far involve adding, but sometimes we can also use subtraction to find just part of a shape if we don't want to find the entire thing. And then this one over here, we've got a couple different shapes that we can break this into. So I want you to try these on your own. Feel free to check in with your teacher, ask for some help if you're not sure. But I do want you to try those to see what you can get. Again, if you had any questions about this, raise your hand, ask your teacher, and feel free to go back and rewatch any parts of the video if you missed anything or if you're confused.